The first man on the moon. The first female CEO. The first pop star to have 7 number ones in a row. The first actor to get 2 Oscars. The first person to ever perform hand surgery. These are all incredible firsts. But what if you were the first to have done something and history has forgotten about you? What if what came later was the story of someone else, but actually you were the person who had begun an incredible journey that would change the world? What if you were that person? Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Thank you for the feedback on the last episode, the Iqbal episode. I mean, it's a tough story, but it's worth telling. My favourite comment was that the Iqbal story was a dick punch. And in many ways, yeah, it was. So, before I go and move on to the story, what I will say is, today is my birthday and I'm only raising it, and I never ever mention my birthday. I just usually let it fly under the radar. But I'm only mentioning it because I do want to say thank you to everybody who sent me lots of lovely birthday messages. And also, really the reason I'm bringing it up is to address that I made this very complicated for myself. What I did was, because I've got 2 profiles on Facebook, right? So I've got Barry Henderson and I've also got Baz Henderson, which is the one that's linked to the Facebook group, blah, blah, blah. That's not really very interesting, but anyway, that's the logistics of it. I set them both. Why I did this, I do not know. I set them both at different birthdays. So what happened was, I had a situation last year where at some random point in the year, I started getting all these birthday messages. Somehow, I had become the queen and I had 2 birthdays. And I was like, oh no, what the hell is going on? So anyway, I've sorted that all out. So yes, so now they're all in line. Everything's fine. But thank you. I'm not some sort of fraud who's trying to have 2 birthdays like the queen. Just a wee error there in my Facebook settings. So hello, welcome to all new listeners to the podcast. Lots of you, hello, thanks for listening. I appreciate you letting me talk in your ears. Right, so we'll do a couple of very quick shout outs and then we'll get on with this story. Hello to Ian Cameron. Hello Ian. Ian's a YouTube subscriber. Hello Ian. Hello Colin Cummings. Thank you for your birthday messages. Hello Lisa Chase. Hello Lisa. Thank you very much for for subscribing to Patreon. Thank you very much. Jennifer Talmadge. Hello, Jennifer. And to the hundreds, and I mean hundreds of people joining the Facebook group, hello. Anyone leaving a review on iTunes, thank you very much. Although these names are tough, right? I love them, but come on, some of your iTunes names, right? What are you doing here, right? Right. Hello, Loose Elastic. Right, I can get on board with this, right? Susie H1963. Yep, I'm on it. This next one, Hinzagega. Hinzagugu. I don't know, but thank you for your beautiful review. It's so lovely. I really do appreciate it. Hinza whatever it is. And Puster 86. Great. Thank you for leaving reviews on iTunes. It really helps me out. Thank you so much. Okay, I was a bit inspired by the Iqbal story, and I thought, you know what, I want to talk about other people in bravery, and I want to talk about like people who've done incredible things. And then I remembered, from the back of my tiny, very small brain, I suddenly went, oh, there's a story about someone who did something amazing, and I just need to pin down what it is, and I found it. And it's a story I'm going to tell in this episode. It was a really small version of it I could remember. I could only remember it sketchily. But I'm going to tell you the story of Laura Bridgman. Are you ready? Okay. Let's go. Right, so we're journeying back in time, as I like to do. Some of the best people, they just come from the old days, don't they? I mean, it's nice once in a while to just, sort of journey back to the past, because really, I mean, it's where all the good ones come from. I always feel like when I'm telling these stories of, like, from the past, like, I should be wearing some sort of, like, cloak, or, like, sitting in, like, some sort of darkened room. I don't know. Like it's something from a horror film. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to move on. Okay, so we're in New Hampshire in the USA. And I found out, right, as part of my research, which, I like to sort of dig into things and go a bit like, oh, New Hampshire, right, what's that about? Let's look at that. This always interests me. You know that every town has its mottos. So every town, every village in the world, every state in America, every part of Australia, everywhere, it has its like thing that, is supposed to be its sort of defining statement, its quality as a town, as a place, as a place to live. They fascinate me. I absolutely love them. Whenever I go anywhere, I'm like, what is this town's statement about itself? Glasgow's is like smile. Oh, I've totally forgotten what Glasgow's is. What? It's something like smile. Put a smile on your face. No, it's not put a smile on your face. It's better. Be better. Do better. Right. Hang on a minute. Right. I need to go and see the internet. Let Glasgow flourish. Right. So it has nothing to do with anyone's face or smiling. I don't know where that came from. I just made that up. But you know the kind of thing I'm talking about. Towns have these. So, New Hampshire, where this story begins, their motto is live free or die. Live free or die. Now, that's interesting. What's that about? What is that all about? There's like a sort of, I don't know, like a sort of finality to it that I don't love, if I'm honest. I'm not sure it smacks to me of being one of the best that you could come up with, but okay. Live free or die. We are in 1829, and the Bridgman family, who are made up of husband Daniel, a Baptist farmer, and wife Harmony, great name. They have 2 young children, and they are awaiting the birth of their 3rd child. And so the family, Daniel, Harmony, they've got 2 daughters already. They're 4 and 5 years old, and this was to be their 3rd child. So Harmony goes into labour, and she gives birth to a baby girl, and they call her Laura. The family's surname, as I've said, is Bridgman. So baby Laura's full name is, wait for this, it's brilliant, Laura Dewey Lynn Bridgman. Great. But we'll just call her Laura for the sake of this story. So when Laura's born, she's quite an unwell child from birth. Like, she's quite small, and yeah, when I was looking into it, the word that keeps getting used, and I think it's probably just to do with the time, the word rickety gets used a lot. I mean, rickety is not a great way to describe a child, but Laura was I think she was just a bit small and a bit not fully sort of developing in the way that she should have been. She doesn't really have an awful lot of strength about her. Now, at the time when Laura is aged 2 and the family have got their 3 kids, scarlet fever is beginning to go around in a really, really big way. Not going around, I don't mean that's that's the worst way you could ever that's the wrong phrase. Scarlet fever's going around like like it's some drug all the kids are taking. Oh my god, yeah, have you heard scarlet fever's going about? Yeah, whatever. No, but scarlet fever was really taking hold of the place where the Bridgman family lived, and the entire family, mum, dad and 3 kids, are struck down with scarlet fever. And they go through a terrible, horrible period of illness. And Laura's 2 older siblings, aged only 6 and 7, die from scarlet fever. So the Bridgman family have gone from a family of 5 with 3 kids to now only 1 child. Laura's parents, they make it through the scarlet fever. They're a bit worse for wear, but now they're facing the absolute devastation that they've lost 2 kids, and they have to pray that 2-year-old Laura will survive. Now, she does survive. She does, but as I said, she was a, in their words, rickety child. Scarlet fever hits Laura hard, and she loses 3 of her 5 senses. Laura is left blind, deaf, and without the ability to taste. So of the 5 senses, all that she's left with is touch and smell. So, I mean, obviously her parents are grieving the 2 kids that they've lost. Just absolutely horrible. It's really tragic to think it, but scarlet fever must have just been something that just took your family down. Do you know what I mean? It could actually just wipe families out, and it's just, it's really horrible. I stopped during my research to look up scarlet fever because I wanted to see if it still existed. I thought it was one of those like old diseases, like I don't know, gout or one of one of these things that don't really exist anymore. But scarlet fever still exists. It's actually still about now. I will say this to you. This is my warning. Beware. Be very aware. Searching it. The images are horrific. It's one of those things you'll search on the internet innocently. Oh, I'm going to look up scarlet fever. Oh, God, no. I really wish I'd never entered those words into Google because horrible. Anyway, the Bridgman family, Daniel and Harmony, they have their daughter Laura to care for, but the problem is this: they are not equipped to deal with Laura. She's now blind, she's now deaf, and she now has no sense of taste. And you know, oh, maybe a better way to put it is that actually maybe the time just wasn't equipped. Schools for the blind didn't exist, and if they did, they were so rare. You know, schools for the deaf didn't exist, and again, if they did, they were so rare, and they were something that the Bridgman family, they couldn't get access to them. Blindness, deafness, they were not something in the time that Laura Bridgman was 2 years old that society had systems for. They just didn't exist. You know, we are so far on now in terms of hearing aids and in terms of everything that's going to come through Laura's story. But the situation is the Bridgman family have a 2 year old daughter, and they are just trying their best to care for Laura. So Laura still has some language skills, or at 2 years old, the best sort of language skills that you might have. But that begins to disappear. She starts to stop speaking. And, I think that's perfectly understandable. This 2 year old has no longer got sight, can no longer hear, can no longer taste anything. So it seems to me natural that speech would be the next thing to just sort of disappear in her. Beyond the age of 2, Laura never speaks again. The last word she will ever say is book, and then she stops talking. So Harmony, Laura's mother, she keeps Laura a very, very well-groomed, well-presented young girl, and she does her best to teach her daughter to be independent and to do the very basic things for herself. Without sight, without hearing, it's tricky. But her mum, she really does her best and she perseveres. Now, we're talking about a time when attitudes towards people who were sight impaired, who had hearing impairments, they weren't great. Let's not lie about it, right? Okay, I'm just going to say people had no time for this back in the day. They just were like, oh, you know what? Blind, deaf, not speaking, can't taste anything. Oh, God. They were treated it was awful. It was fucking awful the way they were treated, but that's the truth of it. That's just, let's call a spade a spade. That's what it was. So Harmony, Laura's mother, was doing her absolute best, but the extended family and everyone else around Laura, they'd just given up on her. Like, what? We don't even know what to do with this human being, because she can't do anything. She can't see anything. She can't hear anything. Oh, what is this? And I read this statement, right, about her dad, and I thought, what the actual fuck, right? Laura, when she was young, when she was like maybe 4, 5 years old, in the house, her dad used to believe that he needed to get into Laura some sort of discipline, right? Now, okay, fine. If that's what you think as a father that you need to do for your child who has all of these impairments, okay, what he would do is he would wait until she was completely 100% unaware that anyone else could be in the room with her, and he would stand next to her. He would creep up and he would stamp his foot really loudly to create loads of vibrations. And of course, she would get a massive fright because she had no awareness that he was there. She didn't know. She was like fucking 5 years old, 6 years old. Not a clue that her dad was creeping up on her, and he would stamp his feet really loudly to make all these vibrations. And the purpose was to frighten her so that she would be constantly alert. And that's what he thought discipline was. I mean, what? Come on. Come on to fuck. Are you serious? Alright. Alright, crazy dad. Going around stamping your feet. Chill out. Take a night off, mate. Like, I really, I really don't think the way to help or assist your 5-year-old child who cannot see and cannot hear, I don't think going around fucking stamping and giving them a fright is the way to help them. Okay, so yes, let's get you to a parenting class. It didn't exist back in the day, but if I'd been around, I would have made you go to one. You fucking dick. It was all to do with obedience. He wanted her to be obedient, but like, oh come on. Now, at age 7, Laura had been visited by many, many doctors over the years, and lots of doctors, they were really intrigued by Laura, by this loss of the 3 senses. How was she surviving was a big question. How was she being raised was another question. And so, there is a doctor who comes to visit Laura, and he is called James Barrett. Now, James Barrett's he's not really worth going into in terms of our story, but he's worth mentioning because what James Barrett does is he recommends Laura to a man called Samuel Gridley Howe. Samuel Gridley Howe was the director of, at that time, the only blind institute that existed. Samuel gets the name The Doctor. So, this James Barrett character who'd come to see Laura looked at her and went, 7 years old, okay, blind, deaf. I know a man who is going to be so interested in this girl because, he's running what was a blind institute. Just to be clear here about Samuel Howe, he was a big man in the world of blind, deaf, sense impaired people. He'd studied it for years. He'd directed an institution and he was always looking for ways to further his research. His kind of obsession was to do with blind people and especially blind kids. He had a real obsession with how do we progress this? How do we move things on for blind people or deaf people? He was he was coming at it from a place of I just really want to make a difference, make something happen. So shortly before the age of 8, Laura Bridgman is taken from her family home and she goes to live in the Perkins Institute, and she will be under the tuition of Samuel Howe. He really wants to work with Laura. Now, it's great for her because, yes, she's maybe finally in a place where, she doesn't have to feel like, oh, I'm the runt of the family, I'm the whatever, because I can't see and I can't hear. She is actually being taken somewhere where someone is going to really pay attention to her. Now she goes and she's young. Oh God, she's only 8 years old. And when she gets there, she has a terrible time because she misses her mum so badly. Now, Samuel Howe takes a great interest in Laura, and he begins to look at how can he help her, but also how can he use the things that he's been thinking about in terms of development on Laura. Now, what I don't want to do here is make Laura sound like some sort of lab monkey or lab rat, whatever it is you call it. It's difficult to say, but essentially she was a bit of a lab rat for Samuel Dow. He was looking for someone to experiment on with his ideas, his thoughts for the future about how to make blind people and deaf people communicate. And he wanted to carry all of that out on Laura. Samuel Howe, by the way, just a quick note on him. If you look him up, you'll see him. He has the most incredible moustache and facial hair. He's quite the... He gets described in the sort of history books as being dashing, much like myself. Kidding. So he was... Samuel Howe was an American man. He was born 1824. He went to Harvard Medical School. He got his degree. He moved to Greece. Now, he had some bizarre obsession with Greece and Greek mythology. And I mean, I say bizarre, it's not bizarre. Just that's what his obsession was. But after a time in Greece, he moved back to the USA. He met a friend. This friend was like, I'm getting quite interested in working with blind people. Samuel was like, well, okay, I'll give that a bash. What's that about? Let's see what this is about. And actually, he ended up fascinated by it as well. So, before he knows what's happening, at the age of 32, Samuel Howe is opening and is now the man in charge of the Perkins Institute for the Blind. He's now running this institution, and he decided working with blind people and learning how to get blind people to communicate properly was going to be his life's work. So, enter into this scene 8-year-old Laura Bridgman. Samuel had such an interest in Laura immediately because she was 8 and she had no communication skills, none whatsoever, and he wanted to use Laura as his experiment. I can't stress this enough. Some of the things that Samuel Howe is about to do had never been done. These were the first times anyone had ever tried experiments on blind people, like his experiments, ever. I mean, people working with him must have been at the time thinking, who is this fucking crazy mad scientist? But his experiment with 8-year-old Laura begins. So, what he does is, first of all, he takes items that she is familiar with. So, he starts with cutlery. So, a knife, a spoon, a fork. And what he does is, he cuts out of rough, very, very rough material, the letters that go with each thing. So, for example, right, like spoon, he cuts out a S, P, an O, an O, and an N. And what he does is he attaches that to the spoon. Stay with me because this is like he's actually doing something groundbreaking here. He then attaches those letters that he's cut out to the spoon, right? So he just like puts them on the side and he lets Laura feel the shape of the letters. So she's basically just like with her fingers feeling these like different shapes. Okay, so she's got a grasp of what that shape is. Then he moves on to like knife. So the K, N, I, F, E, cuts them out, gives them to Laura, attaches them to a thing, but obviously she can then go, oh, that feels different. Like they all feel entirely different. He does it with every bit of cutlery. Fork, F-O-R-K, cuts it out of material, gives her a fork in her hand, but also then gives her the letters, so she's got an F, an O, an R, and a K. And I know this sounds like child's play. I know it sounds like, but it just really blows my mind because 8-year-old Laura Bridgman, she was the first person to ever learn. She was the first blind person to ever learn this. Nobody had done this before. That you thought that you could teach the blind how to spell something out. So if we go back, right, just to the cutlery for just a second, Laura can feel the shapes and she can feel the fork. So she starts to like match those shapes when she starts to eat. When she starts to know how to be able to spell things out. So she knows that like there's a different feeling of letters for spoon or whatever. And this is what really awakens here in Laura, and this is what the big, massive, huge experiment part of his work is that she understands at 8 years old that there is a different word attached to everything that she encounters in her life. And as much as she knows it at the moment, there's a different set of shapes to go with everything. So what Samuel would do is he would take the fork, he'd put it in her hand, and he would let her feel, and then using her fingers, she would need to find the F, the O, the R, and the K. So she would need to be able to identify this. I mean, as I said, this is like, kids are tactile. They learn through touch, through picking things up, through putting things in the mouth, through throwing things across a room, through all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of the way that he was doing it with Laura. He was just making her like touch things, feel things, and go, I can associate that feels like this. But Laura, good on her, she picked it up so fast that Samuel started to think, hang on, is she just learning this through memory? I wonder if she's actually just quite good at remembering what the feeling of the letters of fork are. I wonder if she actually understands that she's spelling out FORK with these letters. So what he does is he takes the same material and he cuts every letter of the alphabet out. Cuts them all out into these shapes, and he just throws them into a big massive jumble. And then he makes Laura, each time she picks up like the spoon, for example, he makes her like with her hands feel for the S, the P, the O, and the N, and be able to do it. And here's the thing, she does it so speedily, so fast, so quick. She now knows a spoon is called a spoon. She now knows a fork is a fork. And it's just the absolute speed that she learns to identify letters next to things is incredible. So they move on to, desk, book, globe, door, bread, all these things. And the list goes on and on, because as soon as Laura's fingers have learned what that thing is, as soon as she knows how bread feels, she's ready to move on to the next one. And so this whole process begins, and it's a very quick process. She starts using the letters to now communicate. So like at dinner, what they do is they put her food down for her. It would be in a bowl, and Laura would then feel the bowl, and then she would, in like a split fucking second, be able to determine what kind of cutlery she needed to eat the food with. So say it was like soup, right? She'd immediately go SPOON. Like she just was incredibly fast at being able to do it. So for Samuel Howe, this is a brilliant advance, because now what he's got is he's now got an 8-year-old blind, don't know why I did that, blind girl who is able to communicate. And again, I can't overstress it, it just didn't really happen. It was so new, it was so revolutionary for blind or deaf people to be able to communicate in this way, through letters and through words. Laura very quickly gets moved from the institution into Samuel's apartment, his home. She gets her own room, and she also gets someone who will look after her day and night. Now, a lot of people felt that might have been an odd, strange move from Samuel to move the young Laura in, but what people said was they have a sort of father-daughter relationship where he's continually trying these new experiments on her, and she's going with it all the time. She's learning and she's growing and developing, and he's looking at it going, this is amazing, she's my prodigy, she's my muse, she's learning all these things. So she gets moved into his apartment. Now she gets a young woman who will work with her all day long. Like get her up in the morning, get her dressed, a sort of mother figure, well, maybe more of a kind of nanny figure is probably the best way to think about it. And this woman is called Miss Lydia Drew. What a name. Lydia Drew. I mean, she sounds like she should be right out of an Agatha Christie, doesn't she? Introducing Miss Lydia Drew. Anyway, Lydia, she becomes Laura's full-time worker, teacher, helper, assistant, whatever. Day to day, Lydia is with Laura. So for the next few years, Samuel continues his experiments on Laura. He gets her doing more and more and more with letters, with spelling things out, with being able to attach the name of something to what it actually is. So Samuel wants to take her learning further, and he wants to add now numeracy. So he starts to add numbers into her lessons with him, and she flies through this. Laura gets how numbers work. She understands this, as she did with the very basics of understanding language. Now, Samuel is going to get really excited, because the next thing that happens is that he gives Laura a pencil, and knowing the shapes that she's been feeling with her fingers, she actually begins to write things. She knows the shapes, obviously, because she's been feeling them, and she begins to put pencil to paper and starts writing out the alphabet as she thinks that it goes. And then she starts to write words and sentences, and then longer sentences, and then she starts to ask questions on paper. I mean, just amazing. From the girl that came in to the institution not able to speak or hear or communicate, she's now writing sentences. She's now writing questions for people. And at the same time, she learns... what is it? It's not... what do you call it? It's not sign language, because, well, according to Samuel Howe, sign language looked like pantomime. She learns... What's the other thing I'm trying to call it? When you, like... You make the shapes with your fingers, and you, like, do it on your palm. It's like spelling out with your fingers. What? Finger spelling. That's what it's called. I've just realised that. It's got... Hi there, hello. It's called finger spelling. Okay, so now she can finger spell as well. So, she's just... I mean, by this point, Laura is a teenager, and she is fast and furious with the communication. She can finger spell, she can write things down, she can, if she needs to, go back to her alphabet made out of this material, and she can spell things out. I love this description. The Perkins Institute diaries at the time when Laura was there will say Laura was exhausting in her communication skills. She has questions about everything. She wants more and more knowledge about everything under the sun. And the more she learns, the more questions that she has. So they start to teach Laura lots of different subjects, because now her grasp of language is so good. Samuel Howe, for all that a little later in the story, he is maybe not going to be our favourite guy, he continues to push Laura, and he introduces her to Braille. Now, Braille, again, it wasn't really a thing, but Samuel, he organised books to come to the institution with words that were raised in little dots, and he introduced them to Laura. Of course, she learns them quick as a flash, being the whippet that she is. No, not whippet. Being smart as a whippet, quick as a whippet, fast as a whippet. Something to do with a whippet. Right, anyway, she just... What is that phrase? Quick as a whippet. Smart. Oh my god. Smart as a whippet. I'm going to stop saying the word whippet, because now I'm doing my own head in with the word whippet. I just said it again. Anyway, Braille, finger spelling, writing, all of this. Laura is an absolute one-off. I mean, she is, in terms of medicine, a medical marvel. But Dr. Samuel, he knows this. He knows what Laura is. And he starts to introduce. Right, this is just like bizarre and awkward. He starts to introduce to the world a new sense. One more sense to be added into the world as Samuel sees it. Because of Laura, he says, yes, we have sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. But I've created a new sense called think. I've let Laura's brain think. Okay. No, I'm not sure it's gonna fly. I'm not sure it's gonna fly as a new as a new sense. But okay, right, Samuel, you do your thing, okay. What he does with Laura is he opens the doors to the institution and he begins to let people come in and see Laura at work. And at first, I mean, this is horrible. People are treating it a bit like a freak show. It's a bit, oh, come on, we'll go down and see the blind institution and see what the blind people are up to. Oh, let's see how they cope with life. But Samuel Howe knows exactly what he's doing in this situation. He knows that Laura is going to be someone that people want to see. The blind, the deaf, the dumb girl who can communicate through writing, and oh, isn't she so clever? Laura starts to, and I really hate this, but she starts to become a celebrity. Hundreds of people, and I mean hundreds, are now coming to the institution to see her, meet her, and she's put up like a performing monkey by Samuel. All these people would come on say like a Saturday afternoon. Loads of people would come to see, oh, this incredible Laura. She's the blind girl, the deaf girl who can communicate with the world. And he would make her do things like write sentences, point at maps, spell out bits of America, and people loved it. Now, people loved it because they were like, oh God, that's incredible. I didn't really think that blind or deaf or dumb people could do these things. That's absolutely incredible. What he was loving was the notoriety it was bringing him, because he suddenly became the wonder doctor. He was this incredible man. He'd taken this girl, and don't get me wrong, I think Samuel, how he did do a lot of stuff, all that early work with the cutlery and the teaching Laura to understand that, every object she ever encountered had a different word. Very important. He's now twisting it. He's now using it for his own gain. It's just horrible. He just wants to be this big kind of like man who's gone, I've done something incredible. And yeah, he has. Just don't be a prick about it. Just like accept that you've made a step forward in the world of medicine, of just don't be a dick about it. There's this like a trend starts because Laura's image starts to make it into the newspaper, where lots of girls who had dolls all across America would poke the eyes out of the dolls and they would call it a Laura doll. So the fame that Laura is finding, it spreads way, way further than the USA. What happens is people from Europe and Australia and from all the corners of the world start to flock in to see Laura and to see this amazing doctor who got the blind girl to communicate. I mean, he has really put his institution on the map. Now, she's 14 when all of this is happening. She's 14 and her photograph is known around the world. And a very, very famous man is going to visit the institution to meet with Laura. A Mr. Charles Dickens. Actual Charles Dickens comes to meet with Laura. You know, Charles Dickens of Great Expectations and, well, you know, the other books that he wrote. the other things that he wrote. Charles Dickens is so fascinated by the story of Laura that he comes to visit and he observes her. For a week, he just observes Laura working and communicating, and he writes notes about her in his book, American Notes. So, for Laura, this is pretty amazing. I mean, this is just, it's crazy for the girl that, just came to this institution not knowing what her life was going to be. So Laura, in the midst of all of this craziness and all of this fame, she really relied on Lydia. Lydia was the person who was there every day to wake her up and teach her, help her with her meals, sort out her clothes. And really, Lydia was her closest friend. But there's going to be a change. Lydia is leaving the institution to get married. And it hits Laura really hard. Outside of Samuel Howe, Laura doesn't really have anybody else. Her whole entire world is Samuel and the constant lessons and the teachings and the, putting her up and making her famous. But the only person she's really got in her life is Lydia, and now Lydia is leaving. And she doesn't cope very well with Lydia going. She becomes really sullen and quiet for a period of time. She doesn't want to do a lot of the celebrity appearances. She doesn't want people coming into the institution to watch her work and see her communicate. Lydia is absolutely heartbroken to leave Laura. But, life has to go on. So, Samuel thinks, okay, right, well, what we need a new Lydia for Laura. That is a lot of L's. We need a new Lydia for Laura. But he's thinking, okay, we need someone who can now look after this now famous 14-year-old. And so Laura gets a new Lydia, okay, even more L's, a woman by the name of Mary Swift. Possibly a distant relation of Taylor, but that's not been confirmed. And this is where there's going to be another huge change for Laura and another example of just how devious Samuel Howe is. Having taken Laura in at 8 years old, he made it quite clear to her teachers and to Lydia before she left. He wanted her to learn nothing about religion. He wanted her to be kept away from any Bible teaching or mention of God. So now, at age 14, Laura has no concept of religious beliefs, no understanding of God or the Bible. And this was a part of his experiment. He wondered, what would a human being be like if they were never introduced to religion? Now, my friends, we could wander into a thorny issue here. I know that we could open up the biggest discussion ever about religion, non-religion, being taught religion, who gets taught what, etc. But just thinking it through, is it every human being's right to be taught religion? Well, that's the question. That's just a question I'm throwing out there. I'm really appalled by the fact that Samuel wanted to treat Laura like such an experiment. But I don't know what he thought he was achieving by keeping her away from religion. I don't know what he was hoping for. I'm guessing what he must have been looking at is going, what effect does it have on people? What effect does it have if you don't ever teach people about it? Or, I don't know. So as I said, Taylor Swift's granny, or whoever she was, Mary Swift, moves in to be Laura's carer, and Mary is like, hell no, I am not going to not teach religion. So she secretly starts teaching Laura about religion and about God. And Laura, like everything she's learned so far, she takes this very seriously. And she begins to ask so many questions about religion, about the Bible. And when Samuel finds out, he is furious, livid, pure fucking raging. He is absolutely raging that religion has been introduced into Laura's life when he wanted to just see out his experiment and see what could happen. So he, as my friend would put it, he does his dinger. He absolutely does his dinger. And Taylor Swift's granny is booted out. She gets fired very quickly. Now, in all seriousness, this is a really devastating blow for Laura. This is now 2 close females in her life gone. The 2 people who are actually like caring for her on a daily basis, looking after her. I mean, Laura's able, she's fit, she can do things, but she's blind, deaf and dumb. There is a lot of things that she's going to need help with. And now the 2 women that she has had in her life have gone. And that, and it's hard. Well, it's hard, but at least she has Samuel, her father figure in this whole thing. But does she really have Samuel? No. He is beginning to lose interest in Laura very quickly. Her name's starting to sort of dwindle out of the press. Her star turn as the blind girl who can communicate, it's not so big anymore, and he's not so interested anymore. He starts to develop a sort of coldness towards Laura, and she takes this really badly. Fuck's sake, she's still a teenager. She entered that place at 8 years old. She's now about 16. All she's ever known is Samuel. She's been pushed about from pillar to fucking post. Nobody's really there taking care of her development, so, of course she's going to take it badly if he starts to be a bit cold. Now you might wonder, and it is a good question, where are her parents in all of this? Well, so her mum, Harmony, she still comes to visit. Her dad's less so, he's less there to visit. But they're just thinking, well, okay, she's in a place where they're teaching her things and she's learning things and she seems to be developing, so let's leave her there. This is not going to be the case forever. Samuel Howe announces that he is getting married. He is going to be married, and his wife is going to live in the house with him, meaning that Laura will have to move out. Now, this is the girl who was once like a daughter to him. She is shocked. There has been no mention of this. Before she knows what's happening, Laura gets moved out of the house, out of Samuel's home, and she's put into the main institution. He disappears to go and get married. Now, poor Laura, but her relationships with other people in the institution are terrible. And they're terrible because Laura was this famous, like, oh, everyone's coming to the institution to see you all the time. And so she doesn't really have anyone around her that she could count on as a friend, or, you know, she's very, very isolated. Laura stops eating. Her only way to sort of control her anxiety, her fears, her feelings is to stop eating. And her lack of eating, it becomes really serious. She goes from a really healthy weight to very, very, very thin. And really, what's happening here is Laura's lack of eating is because the doctor, the man that she was relying on, goes on a, get this, 15-month honeymoon and just leaves Laura behind. I mean, alright, chill out. 15 months for a honeymoon? Aye, yeah. Take a look at yourself. What you doing, mate? Take a look at yourself. When he comes back from his 15-month honeymoon and he sees Laura and he sees that she's ill, she's thin, he has really got little interest in her. And this is what he does. He sends Laura home to live with her family. Now, bear in mind, she's been in the institution since she was 8. She's now 16. Her family are like, well, hello, we don't have the ways to communicate with Laura that you do. She's different. We're different. The whole thing is different. So it's really hard. It doesn't last long for Laura at home. The family try and make it work. She tries to make it work. It just doesn't. So she ends up back in the institution, and this breaks my heart. She uses everything that Samuel has taught her about language and about writing to express on paper to him just how much she wants to be a part of his life. She writes letters to him about how she'll be a part of the family as their help. She says, I will carry things for your wife. I will sew dresses, and it would be my pleasure to serve your wife and serve your family in any way that I can. Samuel Howe just ignores Laura's letters. It's so cold. It's so cruel. You know, she lived with him for so many years. And the thing that annoys me the most about this is he has taught her how to communicate, right? And she's written these things to him in a letter. He's living in his house, which is within the grounds of the institution. They're literally about, I would say, 200, 300 metres from each other. And she's having to write these begging letters, begging him to still be a part of his life. And he's completely ignoring them. And they're in the same fucking space. That's what just, I just find that, yeah. After another few years pass, Samuel's marriage comes to an end and he leaves the Perkins Institute forever. He just goes, he says, I've had enough of the institution. I'm gone. I'm going to do something else. Now, does he come and find Laura to say goodbye? Laura, who has basically built his, future as the man he's going to go out and be, this incredible man who, taught a blind, deaf and dumb person, and he brought all these things. Does he come and say goodbye? Does he fuck? He does do one redeeming thing, but, well, okay. We can say at least he does one redeeming thing. He makes sure that Laura can stay in the institution for the rest of her life without any payment, to, just to avoid any concern that she ever might have to be moved or go anywhere. And then that's it. He goes, he fucks off. He leaves Laura behind, and he never sees Laura again. He's done with her. He's forged his name as a man who can do these wonderful, incredible things, and he doesn't need Laura anymore, and so she's left behind. Laura continues to live in the institution, but she gets no more education, no more lessons. She's deemed now too old to still be learning things, and so she spends her days writing poetry. And, as she gets older, she starts to teach the younger members of the institution. She sews. She does all these things with the communication skills that she's been given. So she's moved years later into one of the nice little bungalow houses surrounding the institution. The institution is the place that she's known since she was 8 years old. Samuel was long gone. He was never coming back. He was never going to be in touch with Laura. Laura began to take ill in her mid-50s. And in that same little house near the institution, Laura's lack of eating over the years and various other health concerns basically took over Laura, and she died at the age of 59. A quiet and peaceful death. Now, what I want to leave us here with is where this all began for me, this big question back when I started. Why don't we know more about Laura Bridgman? Now, if I say the name Helen Keller, we immediately know who she is, and we go, oh, she was the first blind, deaf and dumb person to really achieve, so she went on, she got an education. But it's not actually true. Helen Keller was a good few years younger than Laura, and actually, I found this so incredible. Helen Keller visited Laura in the institution, and they communicated for hours. And then Helen Keller went on to become the person that is the sort of face of what you can do in the face of blindness, what you can do when you're deaf, what you can do, whatever. And I feel like sometimes maybe there's people who don't get the recognition for the things that they actually went through and that they did. And I want to shout loudly that Laura Bridgman is one of those people. Let's never forget that you wouldn't even be hearing the Helen Keller story. You wouldn't be in the position now where, there's Braille and there's the most incredible resources in the world for blind people. There's these incredible advancements in all these things, and so much of it started with Laura Bridgman. And the thing is, I think Laura Bridgman is another, she's like Iqbal in the last story. Laura Bridgman probably died never knowing that actually what she did for the world was so incredible, just by being able to just go, no, I want to be able to communicate. So that's what this episode has been. It's a celebration of someone who I think was amazing and who did so many brilliant things for the world, and will maybe never know what her life ever really meant. And so ends the story. Okay, well, hope you enjoyed that. Alright, if you want to get in touch, you can. You know where to do it. Come join the Facebook group. It's brilliant. The Facebook group, amazing. It's growing all the time. Come say hello. Swing on over. Get involved in the chat. You can email me, extraordinarystoriespodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. I'm there. I'm down with it. Yeah, hanging about. So yeah, I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're having a nice time while you listen to this episode. I don't know what you might be doing. Again, I'm just bumbling now. I just don't have I don't have a way to end this. So, I just keep saying the words, That's all I'm actually doing is I keep saying, but it's not actually going anywhere. I keep saying, like it's going to lead to me saying something. It's not going to lead to me saying anything. So, again, so what? All right, let's wrap this up. But I kind of don't want to, but I will. Until the next episode. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.